So one prediction I have for the industry in 2025 is that the networking part of events is going to become even more crucial.
What I also think live events give you is that sort of permission marketing.
One thing I really wish I could do with AI right now, which I actually saw someone's doing at the moment, is translation, an instant translation into all different languages, including English from English to English, which makes things much more accessible for a range of different people.
One thing I wish I could do easily with AI is create social media posts that really sound like me. There's a really great talk about it earlier about how people are just saying, we want some AI at our event, but not really understanding what it means.
One industry trend that I'm tired of hearing about is that people don't want to go to in-person events anymore.
An industry trend that I'm fed up of hearing about is very much around EDI. It shouldn't be a trend. It should be a thing that we all embrace.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Navigating 2025 Trends Transforming Events in Hospitality webinar. My name is Alex Platia, Director of Product Marketing here at Cvent. Throughout the webinar today, please feel free to participate via chat, ask or upvote any questions using our Q&A feature, respond to any poll questions, and of course, please remember to download our 2025 Trends ebook. Today, you're going to hear from Cvent experts on trending topics, including the importance of field marketing events to drive business growth, how unique venues are becoming the go-to choices for unforgettable experiences, the power of AI to unlock personalization and the full potential of your event, how accessibility technologies are empowering planners to create more inclusive events, the focus on data privacy across hospitality to ensure compliance, and so much more. And with that being said, let me quickly introduce our panel. On my left, we have McNeil Keenan, VP of Product Management.
Thanks, Alex. Happy to be here.
We have Kate Hammett, VP of Marketing.
Hey, everyone.
And we have Kevin Carr, VP of Sales.
Great to be here.
Awesome. And with that being said, let's go trend. So the first trend is personalization at scale. So without further ado, these days, personalization is everywhere. Think about how Netflix recommends shows based on what you watch, or how Spotify curates playlists based on your listening habits. Well, attendees demand similar tailored experiences at events. Think about how they want curated agendas, relative content, and meaningful connections that feel designed just for them. Before we turn to our panelists, let's pull up our first poll question. What personalization strategies are part of your event strategy? Audience segmentations, session recommendations, personalized follow-ups, pre, during, and post-event surveys, and lastly, personalized offers or promotions. So if we give the audience a few seconds to go ahead and complete, while they're doing that, Kate, I'm going to start it off with you. What does personalization mean from an event marketer's point of view? How do you activate data to drive personalization?
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. So personalization in 2025 is table stakes from a marketing perspective. The average marketer is going to be, looking to take personalization to the next level. Interested to see what our audience polls are and how our, event community is doing this. But it makes sense that event marketers and event professionals would be the tip of the spear here. From a data perspective, there is no better way to capture data than engaging in an event, whether that's in surveys before, after registration, certainly with engagement tools, understanding what your audience cares about. And the way to activate from my perspective is kind of going beyond what you can get from firmographics or demographics, thinking about who your ideal customer profile is or who your customer is, getting deeper on, what their pain points are, what their challenges are, what sort of topics they want, to drill into to make them better at their craft. Those are the sort of data captures that you can get so easily at an event or in an event setting, and then use that, to fuel your entire go-to-market strategy. So really, what we'll talk about more is democratizing that data, what to do after you get, the personalization data that you need to drill in more to your ICP. How do you spread that to your sales team, to your customer teams, and curate those experiences. That's the core role of event marketers and professionals. How do we curate engaging experiences? How do we empower our professionals? How do we reach them effectively, and how do we delight? So all of that data should be utilized in the process.
And I think our audience is right on cue there. So the two major strategies that have popped up for 2025 are pre, during, and post-event surveys, as well as that personalized follow-up. So taking that information that you gathered from the event and making sure you're tailoring that follow-up.
Yeah, I mean, one thing, Kate, to kind of add on to that, I think one of the things that's interesting about personalization, it goes hand in hand with your data strategy. Every personalization strategy starts with the data. Coming from the technology side, we realized the power of AI is only as good as your data. And so if you have a rich data set beyond just the firmographics and the demographics, engagement data, interest data, things like that, that's what's going to be able to power personalized experiences. Not just ones that are to groups of your audience, but experiences that literally can feel like they're bespoke to each and every individual. And that's kind of the new magic, but it all starts with getting your data story and your data strategy in order.
Awesome. All right, moving on to our second trend, growth. So field marketing events are on the rise, and technology is key to scaling them effectively. Marketing teams will increasingly rely on tech to deliver impactful, on-brand local events that reach more audiences. So Kate, back to you. What kind of technology do you need for field marketing event success?
Yeah, so I like to think about it in kind of three pillars for the team. So one, you need technology that's going to simplify your process. Events are, a very heavy lift if you don't have technology. Doing it just with, random tools without, something bespoke is a really heavy lift. So how do you simplify that process? You need to make sure that your technology is facilitating that. Amplifying your brand. How do you connect the customer journey? How do you connect your brand at every single touch point for your attendees? Making sure that they understand, your brand value and what is going to come next in terms of their journey with you as a partner or a vendor or an organization. So that is going to be something that's critical. Measuring your results being kind of the third pillar. If you can't understand the value of your program and communicate that, quantitatively, that's going to be, really hard to scale your program, which is, kind of my fourth pillar of what this, field marketing technology requires. Being able to, rinse and repeat on what works. You're going to need to, and want to, continue to do those initiatives that are really driving revenue and expansion, and making sure that your technology facilitates that is going to be core to the process.
Awesome. And I think that really ties well into the next trend, which is all about data activation and how that remains a challenge even today. 20% of marketing leaders cite manual processes and disparate systems as a challenge. So McNeil, over to you. How can event organizers make data work for them across technology systems?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So, first let's start by kind of unpacking what does it mean to just say data. Well, first of all, we're talking about data about each and every audience member. So that is the demographics, it's the firmographics, it's the things they tell you during registration, during those pre-event, post-event surveys, maybe from previous events, and it's things they tell you by how they actually act. So sometimes people say one thing, but their actions demonstrate another, right? And so how do we make sure that all of our experiences are instrumented so we know what people are actually demonstrating interest in? And that's one part of the data story, data on your audience. What about data about your event? You have a lot of documentation. You have things like FAQs on your website. You probably have FAQs on your internal websites. You probably have documentation about your shuttle schedules and your food and beverage. And what's your number one problem? People never read it. So you spend all this time doing it, putting it together. No one ever reads. And so what do? They ping you on Slack or Teams, or an attendee submits a question to you via email. It takes up a lot of your team's time. And unfortunately, the less people read, the less likely it is for you to build documentation in the future, and you end up in that kind of downward spiral. So it is important in this world of AI to reinvest in your documentation, in your data, and getting that all in one place. Because guess what? No one has to read anymore, but the AI does. And so you've got to get your knowledge base, everything you know about your event, and your event's audience in one place. So ultimately, if the AI has awareness of this, it can start answering questions for you. It can answer your audience's questions. It can answer your stakeholder questions and even fellow team members' questions. So you're able to focus on the most important aspects of the event. So there's definitely an efficiency angle of this, in addition to the ability to personalize every attendee experience as well.
Awesome, thank you. And Kevin, activating data is a massive component for the hospitality organizations out there that are looking to grow top and bottom line, and certainly to appease those owners. What do you think about this from the hospitality lens?
Well, McNeil touched on it with the emergence of AI. One of the challenges that the hotels have is event planners are trying to write the perfect RFP. And the perfect RFP is getting bigger and longer and more complex with a lot of custom questions. And they also want a response very quickly. What we can do now is use some AI technology to answer and pre-populate answers in these questions so they can respond to the RFP quick and the planner gets the responses that they want to. Another thing that we're doing with AI is taking all of the data from the market and all the planners to use it as a business driver for the hotels. So we have a product called GPI that's very much powered with AI, where it gives and can consolidate information about the planner, can consolidate information about the RFP in general. It can tell you, hey, you've got 10 RFPs this week or today. These are the top 3 that you should respond to because you have the best chance of winning. Also gives you information about the market. So this is where you should be focusing your efforts. Maybe it's in technology, maybe it's in associations, maybe it's in government. So all these things are wrapped with a nice wrapper within AI to leverage all of that data.
Awesome, thank you. So our fourth trend is how technology helps to support accessibility best practices. So accessibility laws are evolving. Attendees expect compliant events, venues, and hotels. And technology plays a crucial role in supporting these inclusive events for all. Team up with vendors to provide services for attendees with disabilities. Ask the right questions on your reg forms to understand attendee needs. And lastly, create inclusive spaces at your events, including quiet rooms for attendees to ground themselves and decompress. Now for our second poll question here, which accessibility features do you prioritize? Collecting registrant accessibility requirements, hotel room accommodation, event design considerations, assistive technology like captioning and sign language, and lastly, multilingual or cultural inclusivity options. So while we give people a second to answer this, McNeil, how can planners and venues work together to create accessible events?
Yeah, so it's a good question. You know, when you think about what an event is, it is a co-branded experience between a hotel and an event organizer. And so when I, as a technologist, I think a lot about the digital experiences. Some of those are going to be powered by the event organizer and the experiences they put forward. Others are definitely going to be powered by the venue. And so in that co-branded experience, you've got to maintain that consistent level of accessibility for people of all different needs, start to finish. So whether you're communicating information about an event or about a hotel or about a room block or about valet and parking instructions, we need to raise the bar across the board end to end. Now, some of the things are a little counterintuitive. It's tough to imagine a meeting today where there's not some virtual component as well. So the things that extend outside of the venue, those are going to be just as important. Whether it's a 10-person luncheon, there's probably someone dialing in to a full-blown hybrid conference. And so how can you be, from the venue side, a great partner to enable your event organizers to extend that experience to those that aren't able to make it in person? Ultimately, that's going to deliver the most accessible experience, both for those in-person attendees and the virtual attendees as well.
Awesome. And if we go back to the poll really quickly, so which accessibility features do you prioritize? The top 3 responses have been collecting registrant accessibility requirements, hotel room accommodation, and event design considerations. I think you kind of touched on all 3 as the most important.
Yeah, and so you think about, it sounds like you guys are all thinking about how do you prepare for the on-site experience. And so then one thing to think about is how do you make sure that not only do you have that data, but also all your suppliers have it as well. So whether it's food and beverage to hotel operations staff, it's not enough for your team to have it. You got to make sure that you're sharing that in as real time as possible with your venue partners.
Awesome, thank you. So moving on to our 5th trend, hotels adopt smarter tools for data privacy. There's been a renewed focus on safeguarding personal data, and hotels are really stepping up their efforts to ensure compliance with evolving regulations. Event professionals want to understand how their attendees' information is protected, and hotels want to really ensure that their guest data is never compromised. So Kevin, tell us about how hotels have implemented stricter data and protection protocols prioritizing data compliance.
Well, Alex, if you want to make someone nervous, ask them for their credit card information. So hotels have an obligation, whether it's through GDPR or the California Consumer Privacy Act, to protect this data. And they also have an obligation to, one, protect it, educate their employees on how it's being protected, and also deliver information to the customers on those methodologies that you're doing it. Many hotels are now using products to tokenize that data, but sometimes that just protects the data when it's in transit. As soon as it gets to the hotel and somebody opens it up, then it can be exposed. This is where technology can really come in and play a vital role. We have a product here called Passkey, which does an amazing job, and it really does three great things for a hotel. One, it protects the data, so it gives you that PCI compliance and completely protects the data from bad actors, as they say. So your customers have that confidence that if they provide their credit card information while they're registering for an event, that it's going to be protected. Another great thing that Passkey does is it makes it easier for the planner and the hotel to manage the room blocks. That just makes it more efficient for everybody involved. And also the added benefit is it helps hotel upsell, whether it's shoulder dates or upgrade rooms or ancillary products like spa and cabanas, because everybody wants to go to a warm climate for an event, especially when we're in January. So we're seeing, so much more, I would say, obligations from the hotels, but also the meeting planners are making this requirement from the hotels. How are you going to protect us? We did an event with a very large tech company that did a citywide, and they would only use hotels that had Passkey, not for all the ancillary benefits, but because of the security and the encryption of the credit card information. So it is top of mind.
So would you say gone are the days of sending an email with a spreadsheet with attendee information?
Those better be gone. Absolutely.
Awesome. All right, our next trend is all about return on relationships. In an increasingly digital world, events offer a unique opportunity to build personal connections and cultivate those loyal communities. It's no secret that when people meet face-to-face, converse, and share those experiences, they form deeper, more meaningful relationships. According to the Freeman Trust Report, 77% of people trust brands more following those face-to-face interactions at live events. So Kevin, on the hospitality side, it's all about those personal connections. How does ROR between hotelier and planners and even hoteliers and suppliers impact the success of an event?
Well, I know this webinar is about trends, but ROR isn't just the trendy term du jour. It really can be measured. We have this added benefit at Cvent. We are an events and hospitality technology company, but we also host a lot of events. So we're constantly using our technology to manage those relationships, as we plan the event, and once the event gets scheduled, building those relationships with the people that have registered for the event, making a connection at the event and then following up. So there's multi-steps going on to build those relationships and keep those relationships going, because let's be honest, that's why we're in this business, to build face-to-face relationships and kind of expand that network. Other ways that we're seeing it with the hotels in particular is products like our event diagramming. We have interactive diagramming will allow the hotel to work directly with the planner to build a better relationship just with the space. So we had a great client build this amazing event, and when they were working with the staff of the hotel, they were thinking like, well, we're going to see some congestion when we do dinner. So they can look at this tool in real time and interact with the client in real time. Say, okay, how do we want the table set up? Where do we want the food? Maybe we should add 2 bars so we don't have congestion. So it's those things like that that are just going to develop a very stronger relationship. And when you have those relationships, you're going to have more success. You're going to have better results from the event. And then your CFO is going to see an ROI because of your ROR, if it were.
Right. Anyone else? Anything to add?
I mean, with events, something always comes up problem to solve, issue to fix. And so I think that ROR and technology to facilitate more information getting to all stakeholders who are planning an event and hosting an event is going to make for a more successful experience for everybody. Because if you can figure out the congestion or solve the issue that's popped up and everyone has, the information and the ability to do that, it makes for a really seamless experience, even when things pop up. And if you've, everyone in the audience knows that that's how events go.
Yeah, I like to think of it as kind of forecasting the fire drills, right? So what can you prepare for so that, as event planners, many on the call, right, you're constantly putting out those fire drills. So obviously technology can help build those relationships and ultimately help you avoid those and lead to successful events. So our next trend here today is unique venues and destinations are still a popular choice. As event professionals continue to seek ways to make their events unforgettable without overspending, special event venues and unique destinations are key players in creating these standout moments. Nearly half, 49% of North American planners and 45% of European planners responding to our 2025 planner sourcing reports are turning to unique venues for their events. It's a big jump from 2023 when it was only 17% of North American planners that said the same. The shift really highlights the continual trend towards using distinctive spaces. We're going to turn it to a poll question now. Which stakeholders do you typically collaborate with when selecting a unique venue? Venue operators, DMOs, destination marketing organizations, event agencies, sponsors or partners, and lastly, local tourism boards. And, I know here at Cvent, we're always looking for those new creative spaces. This past year, we were down in San Antonio, which was a fantastic destination for Cvent Connect. We're going back again in 2025. And along with that event, we're always looking for unique places to host kind of our ancillary events, whether it's evening nights out, restaurants, dinners, you name it. So personally, I think, this one might be less about picking one venue type over another, but it's kind of where do you see the overall draw for why some of these venues are popping up. So Kate, I'm going to turn it over to you. What are the most popular venues for field marketers? And has there been a shift over the last few years?
Yeah, I would say that, the shift from events and meetings where, there's a PowerPoint and an audience, is completely changed. We all know that. It's all about engagement, particularly in the field. When you're working with C-suite audiences, we're seeing clients need to up the ante even more and deliver not just a unique venue, but a unique experience that really justifies the opportunity cost of the audience. We sometimes talk a lot about event costs and forget that there's a cost for the attendee to give their time. There's no larger investment in your organization than an attendee giving up their time and physically being in a space or giving up an hour of their day. It's a lot more than clicking a digital ad from a marketing perspective or reading an ebook. So when we want to draw the attendees that we need to draw, giving them that next level experience that they wouldn't get in their leisure time, engagement, a learning experience for a C-suite, type of experience, something that is extreme luxury and very exclusive. So the venue needs to be able to accommodate that. And again, I think it goes back for the event marketers thinking about, their ICP and what makes them tick, and adjusting, getting the right venue for, for that persona.
Awesome. And Kevin, what do you think these special event venues can provide that traditional hotels can't?
Well, they can provide quite a deal. And when I say quite a deal, it's usually cheaper. That's one of the driving factors of a unique venue is typically it's less expensive. They also can be a little bit more bespoke. So they can provide a very creative and thoughtful idea where you can really kind of think out of the box, if you will. Another great idea they do, and this is a little bit, it's funny for me to say this because I'm so old, but there's a term called Instagrammable that my kids talk about. Now, if you go onto LinkedIn, there are more pictures from unique events than almost ever before. So if you want to attract a great audience, you want to give them a location that's so unique that they're going to want to take pictures, share it on social, share it on LinkedIn, and kind of drive that engagement of the venue. Now, that doesn't mean that your traditional big box hotel can't provide something unique. what we're seeing a lot of larger hotels do is they're partnering with the CVB or Convention and Visitor Bureau to say, hey, we have a big hotel, our space, we can be somewhat creative, but they're looking for something a little bit different. That's when a CVB can come in and provide other alternatives. Maybe they go off the property for something that's also a little unique. So we've seen an uptick in RFPs that are sent onto the Cvent supplier network that also to copy the CVB. So when the CVBs engage, they can provide those alternatives even if you're staying at a large hotel. Another great place to start, a little bit of a commercial, if you're looking for something that's a little different, is you can just go to the Cvent supplier network and search on venues that are unique, whether it's a golf course, it's a museum, or the Cvent vendor marketplace powered by Reposit that uses AI to kind of match your goals and make suggestions on something that's unique. So a lot of alternatives.
Great.
Yeah, I think to build on what Kevin was saying is you don't really need to be mutually exclusive, right? You can have the big box and then you can have the offsite events.
Absolutely.
You know, one of the things that we've invested a lot into when we talk to event marketers and they're telling us about their event marketing program is the fact that 52% of their event marketing budget, according to Forrester, goes to events they attend. So those third-party hosted events. And so it's not just the event organizer, it's not just the host venue that's putting on events at these shows. It's your sponsors, it's your exhibitors. And they're putting on events at a lot of these special event venues alongside. And ultimately, that's going to create a better event experience for every attendee because they're getting to mix and match between kind of the host venue and all of those offsite third-party hosted events. And so certainly when you're thinking about your event marketing budget and not just the events you host, you can build on that audience that's already brought together, you know, in a city, likely from far-flung destinations, and create a unique experience offsite as well.
Yeah, I know a lot of our colleagues were out at PCMA this past week, and I'm sure many of them were attending some of those ancillary events taking place. Awesome. All right, well, moving on to trend number 8, event content will fuel year-round campaigns. Event and content strategies are becoming more connected than ever before. Providing that unique content and experiences and repurposing your event content will enrich your event programs and marketing campaigns throughout the year. So McNeil, how can you use technology to make that event live on throughout the year?
Yeah, so I like the way it's framed because I get this question a lot. And that how do we extend our event? And I think I might reframe it a little bit. I don't think the goal is to extend your event per se, in that your events are content generating machines. There are authentic first party content in an age of AI putting out tons of noisier content. This is really valuable content. But how are you going to get it in front of your audience? Well, many times it doesn't make sense to call them back to your event that's no longer running, right? That's not necessarily the best call to action. And we don't see a lot of audience people, especially even attendees, engaging with event sites, longer than a week or two post-event. So you got to think about what is your always on content strategy, maybe not your always on event strategy. And so where can you take that event content and how do you get it in front of an audience, whether that's YouTube that can help draw new audience members, or maybe on your own.com, where you've got more control over the data, you've got more control over your audience. Selfishly, we built a solution called Events Plus, which is kind of an always on hub where you can publish all of your content that's created from events. And hopefully, as people are engaging with that content, they're going to be able to also find new events where they can go and sign up for those right on that site as well. And so building that machine where you come live for that synchronous, engaging experience to engage the content, you're able to put that content out for those that attended and those that couldn't make it. You continue to build engagement in that following and that community. And now you've got a primed audience that's ready to attend the next event when there's an opportunity.
Thanks, McNeil. And Kate, what are some tips to make the most out of your event content strategy?
Yeah, so I see the event as sort of like a hub and spoke. So the event being the hub and then the spokes being all your other marketing channels. And two ways I think about it. One, events are great, for those, evergreen campaigns or tier 1 campaigns or any sort of campaign that you're running to get the messaging out and then distribute through the rest of your spokes, social media, into blogs, into email nurtures, and endless sources of content, endless formats. Also with message testing, which I think is something that marketers don't talk a lot about, but one way that we use events, let's take a speech for a spin and see how, this messaging hits, and get feedback from that, and iterate on, this campaign message, and see how it is in the real world. Events are great for that. Getting your point of view, honing your point of view, getting audience feedback, and trying to iterate. And then, from a general content strategy, McNeil and I both talked about, using events, and I believe it's the best source of, campaign messaging to take an event and take this, authentic interaction. Pay attention to audience feedback, what's happening in, the chat, what's happening in the polls. An example from here, I'm interested to see how personalization is being utilized by this audience, and then taking a look and say, okay, how can we build, content guides, empower our customers to take personalization to the next level. We see a lot of people using, obviously, registration and surveys. How can we help our customers go from personalizing via a first name and an email to understanding, on a deep level, the pains and challenges of, their audience. So I like to use events in that way, and that's sort of like the framework that we use. And stay tuned for more on personalization, because I bet there's some good content there.
Awesome. Thanks, Kate. And last but not least, of course, is AI. I expect we're going to probably cover a few minutes on this one before heading into Q&A. So just as a plug, remember to please go ahead and add some questions for Q&A. We'll have about 15 minutes or so to cover those. So with AI, it's obviously a huge focus on productivity and partnership. With the pressure to do more with less and finding efficiencies, it's certainly critical, which is where AI comes in. So choosing those right AI tools for your events, it might be simpler than you think. Many of the platforms you're already using are integrated with AI. So you already have these tools at your fingertips. We're going to go to a quick poll question here. So for the audience, have you all experimented with AI to enhance your event strategy? So while people are answering that, McNeil, you're a big believer in AI. You're the VP of Product Management here at Cvent. What are some of those easy to access tools and the easiest ways for people to start using AI for their events right now?
Yeah, so certainly the easy answer is something like ChatGPT, where you're talking about you as an individual. How do you start to build that skill set and understand what's the value it can provide? That might be something as simple as writing thank you cards for all the baby gifts you may have gotten. I definitely used it myself for something like that. To brainstorming, content ideas, to helping you draft session descriptions and attendee communications. But that's just the start. So ChatGPT is the easy answer, so I don't want to leave it there. Now you got to start thinking at the team level. So what are the other opportunities? Well, one, get your data in order so that your team members don't need to manually curate sources of data, exporting, importing, documenting, all on their own. If you can build that connective tissue to the AI, now you've built your knowledge base that your whole team can benefit from. Not only that, there's a certain skill set when it comes to talking with AI. And some of your team members might be really good at it. Some are brand new. And so how can you build those recipes, those libraries of prompts? And so now you're starting to think about a team strategy about how to use AI, in that, one, we build a knowledge base. Two, we build a list of shareable prompts that helps everybody be able to benefit from this. So what are the tools out there that can benefit the team? Well, companies like Anthropic, even OpenAI, are coming out with more enterprise team solutions. There's also a solution called Glean. Now, let's go a little bit further. Alex talked about your existing technology providers, where there's that opportunity where you've already got the context. This is where your event organizers live in an event management system like Cvent. Or this is where your attendees already are because they're in a mobile app, or they're in registration, or they're coming to your event website. And so how can you introduce AI in context, in the flow? And that's where Cvent's putting a lot into everything we can do to make planners more efficient, unlocking new insights from their data, and more personalizing their attendee experiences. So you kind of got these generic individual tools. You've got these more generic collaborative team tools. And then you can look to your best-in-class providers to make sure they can leverage AI in context across every part of the experiences that they power.
Great. Kevin?
One thing I would add from a hospitality perspective, when I talk to GMs and directors of sales, I always ask them, how much time do their salespeople spend on prospecting? and they typically lie. Oh, a lot, when it's really not a lot. And the reason they don't is because, one, prospecting is hard. You don't know where to start. And it's so time consuming. So I mentioned earlier a product that we have called GPI that has a tool within it that uses AI to do prospecting for your salespeople. So what it can do, it can pre-populate and rewrite emails to planners that have been sourcing you over time. So you could write, no exaggeration, you could send 10 emails before your coffee gets cold in the morning, all using AI. That's kind of a first draft. So you're going to want to go in, reread, make some tweaks, but it gives you a place to start, and it kind of a launch pad for these emails, and it's a great prospecting tool. It uses AI as the backbone.
Awesome.
And I'll go ahead and get ahead of one of the questions. So I see it's a top upvoted question. So maybe let's think a little bit about AI and sustainability. It's a great question. No doubt with where we are today with AI, it is energy hungry. And there's no doubt that that's not necessarily sustainable. Now, it is brand new. And so there are a lot of inefficiencies built into AI right now, whether it's all the way down to chips and servers and power sources that weren't necessarily built with AI in mind. And so I think it is a little early to say whether or not AI can get to that more sustainable future. For example, more and more AI operations will run on the phone and not consume any of those computing resources, in a power hungry data center, for example. So I think the jury's still out. Certainly it's something we're thinking about. What does the sustainability picture look like when we're talking about powering all this compute? On the other side, it could certainly help efficiencies that could hopefully return a little bit on that sustainability picture as well. But I think it's still too early to know what that full equation is going to look like 2, 3, 5 years from now, because there are billions, hundreds of billions, actually probably trillions going into optimizing every part of the technology stack when it comes to AI.
Great. Really quickly, before moving on to Q&A, everyone who doesn't want a gift card, if you'd like to earn a $100 Amazon gift card, please sign up to complete a demo with us. Just click the button that'll pop up at the bottom of your screen. To any recipient outside the US, the gift card can be converted from $100 to another currency available of your choosing. And just one other plug, we have Cvent Connect coming up again this year in June in San Antonio. If you don't know, Cvent Connect is our go-to annual event for event professionals, marketers, and hospitality experts. So please feel free to check out our agenda. And if you'd like to register, just click the bottom that will pop up at the bottom of your screen. So moving on to Q&A. We've got a number of questions, and please go ahead and continue to pop these questions into the Q&A feature on the right-hand side of your screen. Let's see here. Here's one. This one's for McNeil. How can
I'm already on camera, so we're ready to go.
When you have the product guy, you got to take advantage, right? Let's see here. Where did it go? 1 second. It is.
In case you're wondering, our laptop for the questions is down below camera. That's why Alex keeps disappearing here.
All right. Well, we're going to start with this one. What tool sites are the best to use to submit polls, surveys, and content to reach a wide audience?
Yeah, well, obviously, I'm going to be a little biased in the answer here. And I did see another question come through about captions. So, when you look at that engagement panel kind of to your right-hand side of the screen, you're looking at polling, you're looking at Q&A, you're looking at, you have captions that are flowing through on the video. All that's powered by Cvent, right? So we spend a fair amount in R&D to make sure that our experiences are fully integrated, whether it's for an in-person event or a webinar like this. So certainly we try to make sure that we don't require our customers to bring third-party polling solutions, hopefully not even live captioning solutions, subtitle solutions. We try to make sure that's always baked into the full experience, deliver the most kind of consistent experience for your audience.
Awesome. One other question, McNeil, for you really quickly. What were the 2 other providers outside of ChatGPT that you had mentioned?
Yeah, so when you look at those individual tools, the leading providers, you see free, there's Google, Gemini. There are tools like ChatGPT powered by OpenAI. And then you've got Anthropic's Claude model, which you can go to Anthropic and sign up for a similar kind of account as ChatGPT. both OpenAI, Anthropic, and there's even a tool called Glean, something that we're going to be experimenting with here at Cvent, just on the corporate side, that really thinks about kind of that team environment where you can have one knowledge base that everybody's operating off of, or you can have a shared set of prompts so that everybody doesn't need to be a great prompt engineer. I'll throw one other plug out there, which this tool is a little bit more for SMBs, to be honest, though they certainly have announced an enterprise offering coming next year, or I guess we're already in next year, so coming later in 2025. And that's Notebook LM by Google. I've loved it. A couple of my team members have used it, where it's really easy to just toss in your documents, build a podcast about what you're trying to communicate. So people actually, instead of reading, they just listen to a 15-minute podcast and they're up to speed. Or a chat interface where people can ask questions, get answers without bothering you, which is lovely. So Notebook LM is another kind of small team tool that you might want to check out.
Kate, did you have any to add?
Yeah, I wanted to just share with, particularly the marketers, the Marketing AI Institute has an Intro to AI course that they run every 2 weeks, free. It changes. They do a ton of Q&A. And so recommend this audience check it out. Hospitality, event professional, marketer, super applicable for this audience and really helpful as you start to get your feet wet with these tools.
Yeah, in addition to that, I know MPI has a great AI course as well, which is geared for event planners. So definitely check that one out. Kevin, I've got a question for you. What would you recommend for hotels to extend the event once it concludes?
Well, I talked about it a little bit earlier with Passkey. So Passkey is a great tool that helps hotels sell shoulder dates and sell upgrades. So if I'm going to go to an event, especially if it's at a warm climate, like I mentioned, I'm hoping to go to a few warm climates in February. And if the event concludes on a Friday, I want to extend. So Passkey can allow me to extend at check-in, so I don't have to think about it. The hotel enjoys, an additional ARR, as it say, and ADR, and it makes for a better experience. Another thing that Passkey does, which is very cool, is I went to an event, wasn't a Cvent event, but they were using Cvent technology for registration and the event management, and they happened to use Passkey. I got to this city at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I got an alert on my phone from my app that said, do I want to check in early for $25? I did want to check in early for $25. The easiest $25 a hotel can make is by giving people the ability to do an early check-in when they get into that city. So there's many ways to use products like Passkey for not just room block management, but for growing and extending the stay.
Great. We've got another one, and McNeil and Kate, this might be one for either of you. Do you believe that the event technologist position is going to continue to grow, or is it at odds with AI?
Well, this puts me in a tough position.
That's why I went straight to you.
Alex is a good friend of mine outside of work as well, and knows that my wife is the head of our event technology group here at Cvent. So certainly I believe in the function so much that I married it, quite literally. So no, I mean, look, event technologist is a relatively new role. We've realized that, hey, there needs to be that dedicated attention to the technology and the execution above and beyond event design. And so it kind of bridges that gap between, I need to deliver a successful event, I need to execute it, it needs to make an impact, it needs to be integrated to our MarTech stack, and somebody's got to be the expert on the technology. And certainly I think that expertise is what's going to be critical to getting the most out of AI. When you look at any use case across any industry, even look at coding. When we look at who gets the most efficiencies from AI when they use it, is it the person that's the most junior coder? The answer is no. The people that have all the coding experience, they're the ones that get the biggest lift in productivity by using AI. So you have to have that expertise to be able to maximize the lift you're going to get from AI. And so I don't think that AI is about replacing expertise. In fact, it's about turbocharging expertise. It's not going to be as productive for those that aren't those experts. So I think, again, when we get to event technologists, they have the expertise in event technology. they're going to benefit the most from AI.
Right. Kate, we've got another one for you. How might you, and this could be for you, Kevin, as well, how might you involve and integrate critical stakeholders, the sponsors and the exhibitors, into the overall efforts to create a dynamic event and experience to transform your events?
Yeah, I think the, initial kind of creative brief around an event needs to be a co-created experience with your sponsors, with your vendors. I think you're going to get the most out of the space if you're involving your suppliers in your creative vision and co-creating that. Same things from a sponsorship perspective. You don't know everything about another, organization and their business. So being able to upfront share, your key objectives, understand their key objectives, and co-create around that art and science of what you're trying to accomplish in terms of, the curated experience plus, the sales outcomes or revenue outcomes that you're going for, I think are going to maximize your value. I think one of the hard things about events is that, there's so much to do to maximize the event, and there's very little opportunity to do that unless, quite honestly, you're using the right technology. So, somewhat to what McNeil was saying, like, I think the technology piece is there to enable all these other pieces and best practices and strategies that you want to be executing and you should be executing. But you have to have the right facilitation. So I think that's where, event can really kind of get to the next level if you're getting, more brain power around what's going to, empower, reach, surprise, delight all of your attendees.
I think, the best example I can give is when we host Connect, we would sell a lot of booths to, venues, hotels, and destinations. And some of those destinations got very creative with their booth. And they got bigger booths. And then there was a bit of a copycat of the booth expansion. But then we started to see there's a lot of real estate at an event where your partners can maybe advertise, whether it's on the walls, it's sponsoring, happy hours, it's literally putting, signage on the escalators, putting signage in the elevators. One of the most creative things we had last year, Connect, is our friends from Visit Scottsdale wanted to sponsor the bathrooms. I didn't know what that meant when they said they wanted to sponsor the bathrooms, but they work with a third party. And when you would go into the bathrooms, they had a lot of Visit, Scottsdale signage, scents. They wanted it to feel like the desert when you would go into the restrooms. So there's a lot of opportunity with real estate and no shortage of creativity to maximize the events.
Yeah, and it helps build those experiences.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love thinking about the exhibitors in this equation, and that sometimes the exhibitors kind of feel like they're left on their own out on that trade show floor. And so how do we integrate them into that experience, that they're not just, hey, you have your booth, it's all on you. So some of the things we're excited, we announced this at Connect, and then we're excited to get it out in the next month or two, is really thinking about helping exhibitors create memorable experiences. So what might that look like? Well, when they have a conversation at a booth, we don't want people forgetting it. And so we're going to allow a booth staff member to simply speak into their device, give a summary of what they just talked about, and then you use AI to write a personalized message automatically within a minute and get it out to that attendee. So literally as they're walking through the booth, walking away from the booth, 30 seconds, a minute later, they get a push notification via the mobile app. It says, hey, you had a great conversation with McNeil at the booth, hopefully. Here's a summary of it. Here's some documents you might want to see. Click on this to see that and continue the conversation via the mobile app. So we want to make sure that interplay between exhibitors and sponsors and attendees is all cohesive, and it creates that more memorable experience, not just from the sessions they went to and the keynotes they saw, but those exhibitors and sponsors that they spoke with on the trade show floor.
Great. I think we got time. We'll do one more question, and hopefully everyone can kind of contribute here. But in terms of the event mix, what are you guys predicting or seeing for 2025? How is that split across regional conferences, annual conferences? Is it smaller local events? I know that we kind of have stakeholders across the board here. So any kind of predictions for 2025? We'll start with you, McNeil, and go down the line.
Easy enough. Certainly, we always think about that flagship cornerstone event. But more and more, of our customers are thinking about their full program and how does one event build on the other. And so there's an increased focus on the field marketing events. That's why we announced the acquisition of Splash, and Kate's here that he'll talk more about it. That's why we announced the launch of Cvent Essentials, is making that a big part of our platform to not just run your tier 1, your tier 2 events, but to power those higher volume, maybe more local, maybe more regional, maybe more distributed events, and make sure that they're making an impact across your event marketing program as well.
Yeah, I would say that, field marketing is definitely having, its time in the limelight from customers just really trying to get a more sophisticated program, and making that a larger part of their acquisition strategy or their customer marketing strategy, and seeing events really as its own event marketing channel, and getting the attention and the budget that those marketing channels require. So that it's been a good time for kind of the smaller, higher volume, not just field marketing, but more intimate events where you can have more of that engagement. And I think again, we've moved from the PowerPoint and the audience type of events and meetings into breaking down all these walls and silos within events, and engaging your sponsors and your attendees, and just making it more of an experience. So I think that field marketing will continue to carve its place within the budgets and the attention of marketing teams and organizations. And then there is something to be said about the annual capstone event where you are engaging with your broader industry and broader community. I don't think those are going away, and I think you'll see more of what we've called ancillary events. I like the term sidecar events that I heard recently, but how that's engaged the off hours of an event. And many people are probably thinking about Dreamforce and other events where the after hours parties are just as impactful as the conference times. So I think you'll definitely continue to see that mix. It varies for organization to organization, but I think all these different types of events have their place in the total event program, and have a strong and compelling reason to drive revenue.
Great.
The good news is we're seeing growth, continued growth. Looking at the amount of RFP volume that's going through the CSN, we're just passing 2019 levels, which is always kind of our high water mark. So we're seeing that continued growth. The challenge that hotels are going to have is that the events that used to be 3 days are now 2 days, and 4 days are 3 days. So hotels have to be a little bit more creative, because they used to get something for a week. Now they've got to win 2 events to keep that same kind of revenue flow. So the good news is the volume is out there, but the hotels are going to have to work a little bit harder to win multiple events to take advantage of that. But the growth is obviously continuing.
Awesome. All right. Well, everyone, thanks so much for joining us today. This is the end of the actual presentation. If you have any other questions or questions we weren't able to get to on the chat, please reach out to us at webinars@cvent.com. And once again, thanks to our panelists, and thank you all for joining us today.